Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte clear liners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you could pay with your HSA, FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug? Ignored a leaky faucet? Pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look like that? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. But there's an easier way. Thumbtack is the app that makes it easier to care for your home. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, search, chat, and book highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Download Thumbtack and start caring for your home the easier way.
What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the MSC Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things MAC, all things football, all things sports, right here, MSC Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the great MAC to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the MSC Sports Connection podcast, part of the Varsity Podcast Network, presented by Learfield. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Thank you so much for joining me this week. What an incredible week of college football we had in the Mid-American Conference. We are down with 3 weeks. We are heading to week 4, but let's just do a quick recap of what we just saw. As always, some good things, some not so good things, but I think we're going to focus mostly on the good things because there were some pretty good things going on in the conference. We are going to recap the scores, kind of look at everything, and just talk a little bit about some of these results. Some of them not really all that surprising. Others maybe a little bit more surprising, and a couple really big shockers that I think you guys know by now listening to this episode. But we're going to recap those. We're going to talk about those. I'm just going to go right down the list. I've got the numbers pulled up here, the scores pulled up here, the opponents pulled up here. So we're just going to go right down my list here, starting with Kent State at Tennessee. We knew this was going to be a bloodbath. We knew Tennessee was going to be good at home. Tennessee has a great defense. Josh Heupel is a great coach. And this Tennessee team is just looking to kind of finally break onto the national scene as a contender, as somebody who could make the college football playoffs. And now with the expanded 12 team, I think they are very much in position to do so. This is not going to be one of those where these guys aren't really considered. Even if for whatever reason they don't make it to the SEC championship. I mean, right now Georgia and Alabama have to be the favorites to meet there. But Tennessee, I mean, they looked really good this weekend in really every aspect of this game. They came out and they won 71-0. I don't really know what to say on this one if I'm being real honest. I mean, they put up 37 points in the first quarter against Kent State, 28 in the second, and then Kent State no victories here. I mean, they were holding Tennessee to 6 points in the second half, but I mean, this was not the game that you wanted. I do say this, and I love the Tennessee fans that I've had who have interacted with me, who have been part of what I've done, who were so incredibly friendly to me when I went down for Ball State a few years back. Dick move by the team to go for an onside kick up 30-0. At this point, yes, you are essentially practicing in the first quarter, given the Kent State team that you played. I have a really big issue with really rubbing it in. I mean, you guys put up 740 yards of offense, no turnovers, 32 first downs. to me, you didn't have to do the onside kick. Again, that just feels like a dick move. It feels like you're rubbing it in. And maybe I'm a little bit old school, but I do think that there's an aspect of football in which you have to be a gentleman. It looks like in this case that wasn't really the case, but I don't know. For me, you're up 30-0. Play the game. Play it right. None of this cheese. This isn't NCAA 25. This isn't the video game. Play the game. Play it right. Couple things I guess you can kind of take away if you're Kent State. Again, no moral victories, but Devin Cargman was better than 50% passing. He was 9 of 15, only 58 yards. J.D. Sherrod, he had 56 yards on 7 carries. So, I mean, a few things I guess you can kind of look at. And, I mean, that was, 8 yards a carry, 7 yards a carry, something like that. So, I mean, those are positives. Krishawn McCray, he, 3 catches, 27 yards. They're just, I don't know. We'll see. It's Kent State is finally wrapping up their tour of torment, or I think Sicko's committee calls it their tour through hell. But their tour of torment is their final stop at Penn State. By the time this is all said and done, they're playing 2 top 10 teams. Now, Bowling Green did come out and play Penn State pretty tough just a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, played them to a 1-score game, and a lot of fans in Happy Valley were not, happy with that outcome despite Penn State winning. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, Kent State, hoping they aren't too broken, beat up, things like that. But we'll have to check it out and see. So, again, Kent State, not really much to take away from this one, 71-0. Moving on, we've got Miami versus Ball State. Again, same sort of thing. Miami didn't go up as much on Ball State in the first half. In fact, they were up 31-0 at halftime. Caden Simonza, 16 of 26, 111 yards. So solid outing for him, I guess. Braden Sloan, he had 5 carries, only 13 yards, but he did have 4 catches for 41 yards. I mean, Cam Ward, you kind of expected Cam Ward to come out and have a day, and he did. 5 touchdowns, 346 yards passing. Miami they looked like the better team top to bottom. They came out, they flexed their muscles, and they showed that the U might be back. I'm not going to say they are, but the U might be back, boys and girls. Currently ranked number 10 in the country. So for that game they were ranked 10 in the country. So we'll see. It'll be really interesting. I believe they're up to 7 or 8 now. And Miami's looked really, really good all year. They dominated Florida. They beat Florida A&M. And then, of course, this game against Ball State. But we're not going to learn much about Ball State quite yet. I think I don't know. I think we're going to learn a little bit more about Ball State once we really get closer to conference play. And we're real close already. It's actually kind of uncanny to think about how close we are to conference play. Some teams are going to be starting conference play, actually, I believe, this week. So it's right around the corner. We're at week 4. Ball State is actually one of those teams, funny enough. I just had to pull the schedule. I'm like, I better check this. Ball State is kicking off conference play against Central Michigan. Ball State will get their final non-con later in October. I want to say it's like the middle of October against Vanderbilt. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. We'll see what Vanderbilt looks like. We'll see what Ball State looks like. A rare mid-season non-con game. Feels like all the non-con games have been shifted entirely to the beginning of the year. This one's a rare mid-season one for the Cardinals. So, interesting stuff. Excited to see that one. Moving on down the list, speaking of Central Michigan, they took on Illinois in Champaign. Not the results the Chip wanted. Solid first half. They were down 7 at the break. It was 13-6, but they just couldn't get it done. Joe Labus, he 12 of 25, 125 yards. he had a pick, unfortunately. Miles Bailey, six carries, 49 yards, and then Evan Boyd, 3 catches for 38 yards. Illinois just looked like they were a better team. Luke Altmaier, I mean, he was a guy who played really well last year, and I'm a big fan of Luke Altmaier. He seems like a good kid. But, I mean, this is a team who a year ago got really on the ropes, scared to lose to Toledo. Ended up beating Toledo, funny enough, 30-28. Illinois walks away, and they are 3-0, and with a 30-9 win. Central Michigan field goal unit. You'll take the kicks. Granted, they were all less than 35 yards, so Central Michigan had opportunities to go and punch this thing in. Couldn't quite get it done, but obviously plenty to build off of. The Chips are 1-2 on the year. Opportunity to start the season against Ball State and start their road to Detroit. No pods or no divisions this year, all pods rather. And that's something I think is going to be really interesting in how the conference race shapes up. The Mid-American Conference is now going to be truly the best 2 teams will play in Detroit, so we're not going to have a situation where we see a 5-3 team playing in Detroit unless they happen to be the second-place team in the conference. No, we're going to likely see no worse than 7-1, 6-2 from here until for the foreseeable future. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's better for the health of the conference. I think that's better for the showcasing of the conference as well. I'm a Toledo Rocket. You guys know this. A couple years ago, Toledo, if this was enacted, wasn't in Detroit the year they won the MAC championship over Ohio. Ohio had a great team that year, 10-win Bobcats, and Toledo was 5-3 in conference play that year. Kind of backdoored their way in. I do also think this does that as well. It prevents teams from backing their way into a conference championship game. You have to play all 8 games of this season, and Toledo did. To their credit, but they clinched the conference championship berth 3 weeks out. It wasn't great. We know what happened, but Toledo went on to win that game, and then of course went on to win the Boca Raton Bowl over Liberty, who last year was in the what bowl was that? The Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. So, again, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. I really like this pod format. I think it's a good format, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out. Let's move on to the victory bell. And, well, sadly, Miami was not the one ringing it. For all you MAC fans, Miami 16, Cincinnati 27. Cincinnati just looked like the better team on the day. Brett Gabbert, I mean, he's still got an arm. Just don't know if you guys know this. 23 of 35 for 340 yards, 2 scores, 1 interception. Brendan Sorsby, I mean, he looks solid, 21 of 34 for a $186 and 1 score. But it was the ground game, I think, that kind of killed Miami. Corey Kiner, 21 carries, 126 yards, 1 score. When you look at kind of the numbers here, really, total yards, pretty even. Cincinnati 401, Miami 380. Turnovers were a big deal. Cincinnati only had 1, Miami had 2. There were 20 first downs for the Bearcats, 15 for Miami. Miami had a chance to try to do this thing late. They were down 24-16 with about 8 minutes to play. Cade McDonald caught a great touchdown pass, just a little under 10 yards to make this a 1-score game. Chuck Martin sends his offense out to go try to punch in a 2-point conversion. It fails, makes it an 8-point game. I don't hate the call. I know some fans hate it. I know, whatever. I don't hate the call, and here's why. You kick it, it's a 7-point game, it's a 1-score game. That then puts the decision later in the game for you to try to have to go, or for you to try to force overtime, or for you to try to win it in regulation if you can score another touchdown. If you don't, and you convert here, that's less pressure. You just have to make the extra point if you score another touchdown. If you don't convert here, then you know you have to go for 2. So either way, a 2-point conversion was on 66% of the options. So I don't hate the call. In fact, I really respect the call. It shows that you're aggressive. It shows that you believe in your offense to go and get you some points. Unfortunately, they didn't get it done. Miami played mostly okay, I think, in this game. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't really think that they looked bad in this game at all. First half was certainly a defensive effort from both teams. Really all the way through the third quarter. This was a tight game all the way through. It never got beyond one score for too long. And sadly, the Bearcats do reclaim the victory bell and take back the lead in this historic rivalry game. I did mention that I thought the Bearcats could win this one in my preview episode, which we'll talk about those in a minute, doing a weekly preview episode for one game a week, and really, really looking forward to it, to bringing you guys more of these and to try to figure out different things. But Cincinnati, they look like a better team. I thought this was going to be a one-score game, and really it was up until the last less than a minute to play when Cincinnati boots up a 50-yard field goal by Nathan Hawks. This was not the game you wanted if you're Miami. I think there are plenty of things to take away that you can be happy with. Reggie Virgil looked pretty good as a wide receiver. Cade McDonald, he had a day, 8 catches, $135, 1 score. I believe he actually had a monster touchdown catch. Yeah, that was the one towards the end of the game, the roughly the 8-minute mark. He looked really good. But I think if you're Miami, you've got a lot of things to figure out. I think the break last week was huge, but now you got to come out. You got to travel for an incredible game. I'm really looking forward to this one. They're going up to Notre Dame, Notre Dame they came out last week really upset and just absolutely ripped through Purdue. It was something like 66-3, 66-7, something like that. Absolutely annihilated Purdue. And really that's kind of what you expected if you're Notre Dame fans. That's the team you wanted to see a week ago against Northern Illinois. I do think this will be a much tougher challenge for Miami because they're not going to overlook Miami. They definitely don't want to lose to 2 MAC teams in the same season. But I do think that this is going to be an interesting one, and we're going to see a lot of good stuff out of Miami. I like their defense in this one. Notre Dame's offense showed they can put up points, so it'll be interesting to see how Miami counters that. But we'll discuss that a little bit later. Like I said, kind of discussing these preview episodes, doing this preview episode segment with Graham Giles. You guys remember him. He was the guy who voiced all of the MAC baseball rundowns, did an excellent job for me doing that. He did so good, in fact, that we're going to start teaming up and doing some video content for you. We're going to do a once-a-week preview episode called In the Trenches. I'm going to try to release that on Friday or early Saturday before all the games kick off. In the Trenches is going to be our deep dive segment where we take one matchup that week and we deep dive it from all angles. We talk about what Team A can do, what Team B can do, give our predictions, let you guys listen to it. Feel free to drop in your thoughts. Things you want to know more about each teams. We're going to evolve this thing and try to grow it a little bit more as we can. So please drop in your thoughts, drop in your ideas of what you want from that. And we'll do our very best to kind of cater to that a little bit. Moving on, we've got Massachusetts at Buffalo. UMass, future MAC opponent, on their third MAC school. Well, UMass, you are 0 for 3 so far to start the year against the Mid-American Conference. Likely not going to the conference championship this year. In fact, I guarantee you will not be in Detroit this year for the conference championship. But Buffalo, I got to say, came out, went up 7-0 early. CJ Ogbonna, this might be a name you guys want to get to know. He's coming out and he's playing some good football. 14 of 22, $185, looked pretty good. Lamar Sperling, this is the Buffalo running back, 16 carries, 86 yards and a score. I really, really like this Buffalo team. They actually had a 10-0 lead early up until almost halftime. Buffalo surrendered a field goal to UMass. It was a 34-yard field goal. And then it was 24 points for Buffalo after the break. A field goal followed by 3 touchdowns, including a Marquise Cooper 100-yard pick six. I mean, and if you guys go watch this, I think it's still on ESPN. The highlights are all out there. This was an incredible pick six. Takes it all the way back to the house, down the sideline, gets away from defense. I mean, just the whole 9 yards just looked incredible. Marquise Cooper has a lot of speed, guys. I was very impressed. And Buffalo, 314 offensive yards. They did have 1 turnover, only 15 first downs, but you held UMass to less than 200, held them under 15 first downs. You forced a turnover with the pick six. Time of possession may be a little bit of a concern, but if you're scoring quickly and you've got a score like this, you don't need to hold the ball long. Frankly, probably a good thing if you don't. So, again, Buffalo looked pretty solid in that one. Very happy with their efforts. They also kick off conference play this week at Northern Illinois. We'll get to Northern Illinois here in a minute, but Buffalo will be traveling to DeKalb to take on Ethan Hampton and the Huskies of Northern Illinois. That should be a good one. Really looking forward to another great conference slate, and really looking forward to seeing what they do. Up next, we've got Ohio versus Morgan State. Parker Navarro, I like this kid. Anthony Tyus, I like this kid. This is going to be an interesting Ohio team. They've looked pretty good this year, I think. Of course, I know inherently there's going to be a pinch of bias, and I recognize that. But they look pretty good in the loss at Syracuse, the 38-22 loss. They look good in their win over South Alabama. And then offensively, they were okay. But defensively, pretty stout against Morgan State. Parker Navarro, rough day for him, though. He did have 3 interceptions. Going to have bad days, I get it. But Anthony Tyus, again, 16 carries, 90 yards. I mean, he looked excellent. This game was never really in question. Ohio went up 14-3 after the first quarter. Second quarter, Morgan State kicks another field goal. Ohio just punches their ticket really to a victory, and wraps us up with a touchdown in the first half of the third quarter. And then they just played defense. That's what you want to do. Good teams, they win, they find a way to win, and Ohio did. 335 yards. They survived 4 turnovers, which it's rare to survive that many turnovers and win a football game, but they did. 22 first downs. You held Morgan State to less than 220 yards. 1 turnover. Got to figure that out. But 16 first downs. So, Ohio, hats off to you. Great effort all around. Really, really liked seeing what I saw out of you guys. They travel down to Kentucky, so we got a few schools heading down south again. They travel to Kentucky this week to take on a Kentucky team who just lost a 1-point game to Georgia. Ohio is hoping to catch them exhausted. We'll see. It's very, very interesting. That'll be at Kroger Field. Looking forward to tuning in to catch that one. And, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. That's Ohio. This game is interesting to me. So Ohio has played Kentucky so many times that they actually have, I mean, it's not even just like they've played one time and Ohio got lucky, whatever. No, they've played 6 times. Kentucky owns a 1-game winning streak currently. The last time they played was 2014, I believe. Kentucky won that game in Lexington. In fact, I think all the games have been at Lexington. Somebody listening, please correct me if I am incorrect, but I do believe all time they played each other in Lexington. But the Bobcats, they're looking to kind of relive a little history here. Almost 20 years ago to the date, Bobcats pulled the upset in Lexington, 28-16. Brian Knorr was the coach for the Bobcats at the time. That was a good one. That's one that people got to hang their hats on. So, I mean, this is a team that can do it. You know, we'll see. I'm not overly confident in Ohio just because, again, it's the SEC. They've been put on notice. I think Ohio even went 4-7 that year. They weren't great that year that they beat Kentucky. Kentucky was even worse. I think they only had 1 or 2 wins. But Ohio has a lot of good pieces in place. And so I'm very curious to see what they do and if they can get some good stuff going. We'll stay tuned for that one. Got a few things I want to discuss with that one later, but Bobcats versus the Wildcats. One of the Cats is going to be on top. One of them is going to be, well, they're going to not win this one. So gotta pull for the Bobcats here. But before we get to the rest of this list, I want to make sure you guys are pulling out your phones and downloading the Varsity Network app by Lairfield. It's available in the App Store today, the Apple App Store and the Google Store, the Google Play Store, I believe is what it is. Download that app today because one of the best things about it, and this is what I've been trying to tell everybody who's been downloading it, you can listen to live audio broadcasts from each of your favorite colleges in the U.S. So let's say you're a big Mac fan like I am. You want to tune into Toledo playing college football? Pull open the Varsity app. You can check out that broadcast. You want to hear Ohio in the basketball tournament, the NCAA tournament? Guess what? You can listen to that live in the app. It's free to download. You can follow and choose and select your favorite schools and listen to those live broadcasts. But also, you can listen to a bunch of podcasts. They've added a great feature where there are hundreds of podcasts, such as this one, available for free on that app as well. So, guys, make sure you are downloading that app. Please, 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 please download this app. It's free, like I said, available now. You can listen to hundreds of audio broadcasts and hundreds of podcasts just like this one. So if you're a true college sports fan, the Varsity Network app is the app you need to download today. Back to things of today, we are focused on the last couple games here for the Mid-American Conference. I'll be honest, this next one, I got a little bit worried for Akron. Akron was taking on Colgate, the Colgate Raiders, who are now 0-3. Akron, their first win of the season. And Ben Finley, this was a slow start for Akron. Colgate went up 17-0. Akron came back out and took the lead going into halftime, but Colgate went up 17-0 in this game. Akron would ultimately win 31-20. However, this did not look good for Akron early on. Ben Finley, however, to the rescue. 28 of 43 for 358, 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. Jordan Simmons, he had 9 carries for 49 yards. Adrian Norton, 5 catches, $125 and 1 score. So not a bad day if you can average 25 yards a catch. No Alex Adams. Looks like he's still dealing with a few injuries, but hoping to see him again soon. But we have Akron put up 416 yards of offense. They had 2 turnovers, 24 first downs. Colgate, you were held to under 350, which sounds like you still had a pretty good day, if I'm being honest. Or under 250, still sounds like you had a pretty solid day. 2 turnovers, 13 first downs. Akron, time of possession by almost a minute. Or by almost 2 minutes, rather. And this was not a if I'm being real honest, guys, I watched a little bit of this game. CJ Nunley did a great job. He was the one who kind of secured this victory and made sure that Akron didn't have to sweat it out there at the very, very end of the game. And, CJ Nunley, this is a stud of a player, guys. If you don't know this name yet, you definitely need to. On the year already, he has 13 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. He is a senior, and I think he's going to have a really good year. Once you get out of this non-con slobber knocker that you have scheduled for the Zips, this is going to be a guy to watch here in the Mid-American Conference this season. So keep your eye out for CJ Nunley. I really like what he's doing. he's a good kid. He knows football. He knows the game well, and something you guys should definitely be aware of. But anyway, Akron wins this one 31-20. They travel to South Carolina. Woof. South Carolina this week. I don't know. I really like Ben Finley. He does have 5 touchdowns, 3 picks on the year. But Akron, I mean, respectfully, good luck this weekend. This is a tough outing. I mean, Akron, similar to Kent State, has had a pretty tough outing. Akron opened the season against Ohio State, traveled to Rutgers, lost on the road there, took on Colgate at home, and then you travel to South Carolina. So 2 Big Ten teams, an SEC squad, and then you start conference play on the road at Ohio. That's a tough one if you're Akron. Moving on, we've got Bethune-Cookman taking on the Broncos of Western Michigan, and I caught a little bit of flack on Twitter, and I want to explain myself. I don't think that Western Michigan is a bad team. Caught a little bit of flack on my power rankings, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked those out yet, go check those out on Twitter or over on Instagram at the MSC Podcast. Week 4 power rankings are live. I'm a big fan of Western Michigan. I think they got a solid defense. I think they got a pretty good offense. Hayden Wolf is going to have a great year in the Mid-American Conference. Western Michigan came out. They looked the part against Wisconsin earlier this year, actually in Week 1. Then they got the doors blown off of them by a $20 million roster in the form of Ohio State, 56-0. Then you finally get to come back home. You actually get to come back home for Bethune-Cookman, an FCS squad. I don't think Western Michigan is bad. Hayden Wolf looked great in this game, 305 yards, 3 touchdowns, just a pick. But Jaden Nixon stole the show. 17 carries, almost 200 yards and 2 scores. Anthony Sambucci, 4 catches, 103 yards, 1 touchdown. They all played their parts. They all did what they needed to do. Western Michigan went up 28-0 early in this game. They actually owned a 35-14 lead at halftime. Pulled off the gas a little bit. Bethune-Cookman goes up. They return the kickoff, 98 yards, cuts into this lead a little bit. Western responds with 2 more touchdowns. I mean, this game was over at halftime if we're being really, really honest. But Western called the dogs off, said, "Hey, we're gonna play this game. We're gonna do it our way, whatever." And I really like what Western did. 677 yards of offense, just 1 turnover, 30 first downs, all great numbers, and you held the ball for 26 minutes. You look great. You look the part. We don't know enough about Western Michigan yet. We learn a little bit more about Western Michigan soon, but we don't know enough about Western Michigan quite yet. They're going to be on bye this week, but next week they take on Marshall. I'm really excited for that game. We'll talk about that one a little bit later, but they are on bye this week. A well-deserved bye gets you a chance to rest up, heal up, work on a few things. Western's still one of my dark horse contenders. I like them. I think they've got all the pieces to be a MAC contender. But I think defensively there's a few things I got to clean up. Eastern Michigan, Jacksonville State. Oh boy. Rich Rodriguez returns to Washtenaw County for the first time since he was let go at U of M back in 2010, after the 2010 season. This was interesting. Cole Snyder looked excellent. He had 2 touchdowns, 273 yards. Elijah Jackson Anderson, I really like this kid. He's a junior from Flint, Michigan, so hometown kid. 24 carries, 87 yards, so not a great hit rate, but, I mean, when you're still averaging, what is that? That's 24. So, I mean, you're still averaging almost 4 yards a carry, about 3.6 yards a carry there. You're not gonna sneeze at that, honestly. Oren Singleton, 8 catches, 89 yards, almost 10, or a little bit over 10 yards a catch. Can't argue with that. This game was nothing but chaos at the end of the fourth quarter. So you had I pulled up the ESPN win probability chart. So Eastern Michigan was supposed to win pretty much the whole way. Eastern Michigan goes up. They have a 31-20 lead going into the fourth quarter. And then chaos happens. Eastern Michigan has a 3-point lead with 9 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. And then it looks like they're going to seal this thing. Jacksonville State ties it up right at the end of the fourth quarter. Then it looks like Jacksonville State's going to win this thing in overtime because Eastern was forced to kick a field goal. Jacksonville State, just the chaos here. Like it's so hard to describe the chaos because that's all it was. Eastern Michigan wins this thing in 2 overtimes. They trade 40-yard field goals in the first overtime. Jesus Gomez, he looked excellent all night long. You can't complain about that. He had 3 field goals and then a bunch of extra points. Kid's a stud. I'm a big fan of his. I think he does really, really great work. But this game came down to just this absolutely unbelievable, incredible play for Eastern Michigan. And then they missed the kick to take a 3-point lead. Some bad snaps. I mean, they did not look great in that second overtime. But Eastern Michigan came out and they realized, hey, this thing's still tied 34-34. We just got to put our guy in position, and that they did. Jesus Gomez, a 34-yard field goal to win this on 4th and 1 from the Jacksonville State 16-yard line. A great win for the Eagles. And really, I think an opportunity for them to go 3-1 after this week, depending on what they end up doing. They do have St. Francis from Pennsylvania coming to town. So back-to-back wins at the factory would be absolutely monumental for Eastern Michigan. Again, it's St. Francis, so FCS squad, who's already taken on a couple of MAC squads this year, or will take on a couple MAC squads. So they've got Kent State, who they beat, and then an opportunity to get a win at Eastern Michigan if you're St. Francis. But I don't know. I like the Eagles playing well early here in the Mid-American Conference non-con schedule. Got the win at UMass, the loss at Washington, but then the nice home thriller against Jacksonville State. Can't argue with that. And then the nightcap. The game of the week, probably in contention for game of the year, probably in contention for the largest blowout by a MAC school on the year in terms of just the caliber of what it was. The Rockets traveled to Starkville, Mississippi. This was one of the games of the week, a game that people were really excited about. Toledo fans confident, a little nervous about the offensive line for good reason, but confident the Rockets could come out and do this. Come out and do it, they did. Not only they beat Mississippi State on the road, capturing their second ever win over an SEC squad, they flat out bullied them for 4 quarters. Toledo very much could have won this game by 40. Final score 41-17. Jason Candle called off the Dogs in the third and fourth quarter. In fact, fourth quarter, Toledo just settled for a pair of field goals. This was an intense game. I was very, very impressed from start to finish how Toledo played. Toledo scored on 80% of their possessions in the first half. 4 of 5, and they were all touchdowns. Toledo battled penalties on their very first drive, still found a way to get into the end zone. This was unbelievably impressive. I'm going to be really honest. I was expecting Toledo to get a win. I was really hoping they would get a win, if I'm being really honest. I did expect that Mississippi was going to win this. Mississippi State was going to win this one, and it was going to be like a 3-point game. I was unbelievably hopeful, and I was confident in our boys, but I'd had questions about the offensive line, who up to this point didn't really gel, at least based off of what I was seeing. But when you go into an SEC stadium and you hold a 28-3 lead as a MAC school at their place, you don't let off the gas. In fact, you keep pushing. Tucker Gleason was phenomenal on the night. 23 of 28, 5 incompletions, 3 touchdowns. He was averaging over 10 yards a throw or a completion. Toledo bullied them on the ground for 170 rushing yards. Toledo had a bunch of guys catching passes. And they did the damage. Like, they did it. They did so much damage in this game. They had 9 different guys catching passes for 23 catches, 285 yards, averaging 12.4 yards a catch as a unit, and 3 touchdowns. Junior Vander Ross, of course, Jawan Newton, both kind of pacing those guys. But Anthony Torres had 3 big catches. Larry Stevens had a big catch. Jaquez Stewart, he had a nice 27-yard catch. Willie Shaw had a couple 10-yard catches. I mean, Connor Wallendak, the Perrysburg native, he looked good on the night too. He had a rushing touchdown, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he and Willie Shaw both had rushing touchdowns. I mean, Toledo bullied them all night long. Toledo racked up 84 tackles, paced by Maxon Hook, the safety. Wow. He had 12 tackles, 4 solo. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, he had a pass deflection, 10 tackles. Lance Dixon, Braden Alls. I mean, these guys, Daniel Bolden looked really good. He had a big tackle for loss. Jackson Barrow, Nasir Bowers. I mean, this defense came to play, and they played out of their minds. If you're a Toledo fan, there's plenty to be excited about. Bryson Hammer had a big pick to end the first half. If you guys remember, if you watched this at all, Mississippi State was driving, and instead of taking the points to go into halftime, which I get, I respect the coach's decision, but instead of taking the field goal to go into halftime, you throw it toward the end zone. You try to cut into the lead, make it an 18-point game going into the break. Feels a lot more manageable than a 28-6 game. Bryson Hammer comes down with this thing to end the half, and yeah, you really can't be upset. Toledo only punted twice in this game. Emilio Duran, he punted the ball twice, total of 76 yards. Mississippi State punted the ball 4 times. 4 times. I mean, I could talk about this game all night. Toledo, 26 first downs. Mississippi State, 21 first downs. Toledo was 2 of 2 on 4th down. Mississippi State, 50%, going 1 and 2. Toledo bullied them so much that when Toledo allowed them to score 14 points in the second half, they forced it into 2 different quarters. They gave up a 7 in the third, 7 in the fourth. Mississippi State technically outscored Toledo in the second half by a point. If you chopped off this game and you broke it into 2 different halves, if you broke it into all 4 quarters and specifically just each quarter was a game, Toledo won 2 out of the 4 and then tied for the other one. Mississippi State won the 4th quarter by a point. 1 point, 7-6. Toledo very much ran away with this game. But this is what you expect when you're a Toledo fan. There's a lot of talk about talent gap in the Mid-American Conference and talent parity and who really has the most talented rosters. Toledo's always up there. Toledo always has great recruiting classes, always one of the best in the conference. Now you've got NIL, now you've got transfer portal guys who want to become part of something and make a name for themselves. Whatever. Mississippi State, pound for pound, composite ratings, had more talent on their entire roster than Toledo had. They had more 4-stars than Toledo had. This Mississippi State team should have won this game by the 10 or the 10.5 or whatever the spread was. Instead, Toledo comes out and they bully them up and down the field. And when you dive even further, and, I don't want to dive too long into this, this wasn't a contest in which Mississippi State just was getting bad breaks. I mean, they only had 2 turnovers. This was a contest in which they didn't have a first down until the second quarter. This was a contest in which they had less than 100 yards in the first half. This wasn't one of those things where they just struggled and had bad turnovers and whatever. This was awful for Mississippi State. And again, they're 1-2. They're going into conference play. You're not really worried about a game against Toledo. But in a world in which the college football playoffs are going to rely on wins over big-name schools from big-name conferences, this win meant everything to Toledo on this season after being so close a year ago against Mississippi State, or against Illinois. Jason Candle can finally put to bed that he can't beat a Power 5 opponent, because he can. I have a lot of respect for Jason Candle. I think he's a phenomenal coach. But if I'm him, I do think about that a little bit. I do think about the fact that we lost that Illinois game on a crazy Hail Mary 4th down that set up a field goal. We lost the Notre Dame game because of, a crazy 4th down in which DeQuan Finn took it all the way to the house, which he should, but the defense just ran out of gas on the final possession. He's been so close in so many of these games, and I want to recognize that. For him to finally get this done is a huge statement for him, his guys. It shows that these guys love playing for him and want to go out and compete, and they did. You watched this game. Toledo was having fun. They, yes, it was a business trip, but they went out and they were just having fun. And you got to love that. You got to love that if you're a Toledo fan. You got to love that watching this game. Toledo had a lot of fun doing this. But you got to avoid the hangover. This week they travel to Western Kentucky. Man, I got to tell you, this Western Kentucky game is going to be real interesting. Western Kentucky doesn't look bad. They lost to Alabama in week 1, 63-0. They came home, they beat Eastern Kentucky 31-0. But then they just had their big rivalry game with Middle Tennessee, and they beat them 49-21. I don't think this Western Kentucky team looks too bad. And Toledo, if you're trying to do this, you got to avoid the hangover. This isn't the week to have your lull, because right now you're going up a team against similar skill set, everything. This is not the lull week. Toledo, you should be getting a bye, hopefully sooner than later, but you should be getting a bye here soon. Yeah, you get a bye after this Western Kentucky game before you kick off conference play against Miami. That's when you can have your quote-unquote lull. 4 weeks of work, and then you can finally rest for a moment. So, big opportunity here for Western Kentucky and Toledo both. This game is going to be massive for conference races, but also for college football playoff implications. If Toledo comes away with this win, you're 4-0 to start the season. And then you get to take on Northern Illinois, Bowling Green. Northern Illinois, who's ranked, by the way, in the top 25. First time that we've seen a MAC team ranked this early since, I want to say, 2003? I could be wrong. Hustlebelt had the numbers on that earlier. I meant to look at that again. But it's been a while since a MAC team's been rated in the top 25 this early in the year. And now Toledo's receiving votes, so there's an outside shot, depending on what happens, that Toledo could be also in the top 25 this weekend. We could see 2 MAC teams in the top 25 by week 5, or going into week 5. I don't know. To me, that seems pretty cool. But Toledo, you got to take care of business on the road first. There's a big opportunity. Western Kentucky down there in Bowling Green, the Hilltoppers do an excellent job. Great fan base, great people. But for Western Kentucky too, this is a big game because you get a quality opponent who's coming in off of a big win against an SEC school, a dominant win against an SEC school. But then this is big for you heading into Conference USA play. You know, there's a lot of talk about, is the MAC good? Is Conference USA good? All of that being said, this is a good Group of 5 versus Group of 5 matchup, and I really think this is going to be a really good one. It's going to be hot down there in Bowling Green. It's supposed to be 87 degrees to 7 p.m. kickoff. I'm excited for that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to seeing both those teams kind of clash and go head-to-head on this one a little bit. But that being said, we've also got one more matchup we didn't get a chance to talk about yet. Bowling Green taking on Texas A&M. I am psyched for this game. Falcons traveling down to Texas A&M, and oof, buddy. This is Texas A&M ranked in the top 25, of course, but the Falcons, they gave number 10 Penn State all they could handle just 2 weeks ago. Now you get Texas A&M on the road at their house. Aggies are 2-1, sitting in the top 25, and Bowling Green still got a good defense. Aggies lost a heartbreaker versus Notre Dame 23-13. We all know what happened to Notre Dame the week later. They beat McNeese State 52-10, and then they got a win at Florida 33-20. So they've already started conference play, but now they get kind of a weird Bowling Green game in between conference games. After last week, I don't think Texas A&M is going to overlook Bowling Green, especially with what Bowling Green did at Penn State. But you never know. This is an opportunity for these teams to have a good clash. I did pick Bowling Green to win this game earlier this year, and I'm still going to ride with that. I like the Falcons in this one. I think they've played great defense. They've played pretty good offense. We saw what they did against Penn State. You make a few more adjustments or complete one or two more passes, much different outcome, I think, up there in Happy Valley. But I like the Falcons, and that's going to be my big upset of the week, I guess. So we've got plenty of great games on tap. Really looking forward to seeing what these teams do, who can do what, and who can bring glory back to the Mid-American Conference. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please check out all the social media outlets that I've got up on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at the MSC Podcast. Going to be releasing my next episode of In the Trenches on Friday or maybe early on Sunday, just trying to see what I can do to get that edited in time. But please check that out. Please check that content out. Lots of great things happening over here. And yeah, guys, that's really it. Just thank you so much for the support. I can't overstate enough how much I appreciate all you guys continue to do to support the show with follows, likes, retweets, everything. That means the world to me. It's kind of surreal to kind of see so many people willingly listening to my voice and trusting my opinions, but it's pretty humbling. So thank you guys so much. Please continue to share. Like I said, every share helps to spread the word of Maction. So I'm trying to increase that audience through every team. Bowling Green, Ohio, Toledo, every team you guys love, I love just as much. Maybe a few more than others. Probably Toledo slightly more, but I can keep alma mater bias out of it. But all jokes aside, guys, thank you so much for the love and support. It's truly meant the world, and I'm really excited to continue to deliver you MAC content. I was worried I was going to struggle to do so while I was here at Heidelberg, but so far it's been a few hiccups, but I've been able to do so, and I'm truly thankful for you guys and your patience and kindness as I navigate kind of all these next steps and what's happening next. So that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. I will see you in the trenches.